Hey guys, and welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. And what I wanted to talk about today was something that if you've spent any time kind of in the social media gun space, you've heard this expression come up. And I want to kind of shed a little bit of clarity on it and my take, because I think that while it has some value, it also really tends to get misused and overused to a point where it creates some unnecessary tribalism and some barriers to entry that can kind of complicate things. And as you might have guessed by the title of the video, what we're talking about is stop being poor. So generally, when you hear this expression come up, it is because you've got somebody that is running a either suboptimal piece of gear, or they are trying to achieve something in terms of either firearm selection or modification on a budget that's not necessarily conducive to the level of performance that the sort of collective gun space has signed off on as appropriate for defensive use. And so there's two different branches to this tree that I think are really worth addressing. The first one, a prime example, would be in a group that I'm a part of. This guy posted a photo of his collection of 3 different long guns and 3 different handguns, all of which at first glance were kind of tacked out. They all had optics, a lot of them had flashlights and or lasers, and a whole bunch of different add-on accessories. As soon as you looked closer, nothing that was part of this collection was of any real appreciable quality. There was... I take that back. A couple of the handguns were okay in terms of he was running Glocks, so those have a proven track record, but it was the whole was kind of worse than the sum of the parts, because all the long guns had exceptionally cheap optics on them. I mean, we're talking like Sightmarks and you know, something that you might put on an airsoft gun, but you'd never really consider for hard use application. Bolt-on Amazon accessories for his shotgun, and it was abundantly clear that he was more interested in the look of these things than the actual performance of them. And I think that is a great exemplar of stop being poor, because for the same outlay of cash, he could have very easily set himself up with a decent quality handgun, with a decent quality optic, and a decent quality light, and the same thing with the long gun. But instead, he chose to buy 6 less effective pieces of hardware instead of 2 decent ones. That is where I think the stop being poor has validity. Because especially for somebody that is just getting into things, they're going to have a very hard time establishing standards of efficacy, durability, etc. And so they very well may buy something not knowing any better, and then, well, now that's a sunk cost, so they're not necessarily going to be inclined to improve on it. I think that is a good learning opportunity whenever you see this stuff come up. Because if they genuinely don't know any better, then it's a good time to teach them so that they don't waste more money than they already have. But if it's a circumstance where they are just interested in kind of looking cool and feeling badass, well, you know, at that point, there's only so much that you can help those people. But the flip side of this coin is there are genuine circumstances where you've got somebody who, for whatever reason, has a hyper-specific set of requirements in terms of funds, in terms of specs, what have you. And if that's all you got to work with, then finding the most appropriate answer for that set of circumstances is better than just saying, oh, well, too bad, stop being poor, come back when you have more money because the cover charge to play this game is X. I don't like that. I think it's very limiting, and I think that a lot of folks, especially for whom this is either their primary hobby or part of their lifestyle professionally, can tend to artificially inflate what most people think is accessible or reasonable or even affordable. A prime example is I get crap, not a lot, but I get crap because I'm running a Swamp Fox red dot on my pistols as opposed to a more proven Holosun or Trijicon RMR. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, as I've said before, I am very close personal friends with the marketing director over at Swamp Fox. And so, number one, that has kind of afforded me some access. And also, I trust him as a person. He is honest almost to a fault. And he would literally tell you if he thought that a given product that he was putting out was crap. So, that being said, I'm putting my trust as much in the person as I am in the product. Now, I'm not emotionally invested in this product. So, if it starts showing signs of failures or shortcomings, you bet your ass I'm going to ditch it and go to something that has a more proven track record. But I'm also willing to kind of do some of the testing and see if it fits my personal needs. Now, in terms of durability, especially with the ammo shortages that have been going on, I've only got about 500 rounds on this thing, but it also survived a 5-foot drop onto my kitchen tile with no adverse impact to the glass. I have not had a chance to reconfirm zero yet, but in the same vein, I don't anticipate that there was any zero shift, and if there is, I'll be sure to let you know. So there are people that'll come at me and say, well, why are you running that cheap Chinese red dot? Stop being poor. Honestly, it's because from what I've seen and from what I've done, I feel that this fits within the parameters of my most likely use cases. And the reason why I'm doing this video dressed like this is the most expensive shit that I own. This is a custom shirt from a friend of mine. This is my best quality designer Italian suit, and I've even got a pair of handmade English hole cut loafers on, or hole cut Oxfords rather. This is literally the most expensive clothing that I own, and a lot of the same people that'll turn their nose up at the idea of spending $1,600 on a suit are the very same ones that in the blink of an eye will spend $300 on a flashlight, $600 on an optic, $1,000, $1,500 on a carry gun. And if it is a tool of your trade, cool, go for it, by all means. If the value is there for you as an everyday carrier, cool, rock on. I can tell you, I've gotten a lot more mileage, a lot more use, a lot more value for my dollar out of all of this than I ever have out of a defensive firearm. Now, obviously the counter to that is going to be, well, none of this stuff is going to be used to save your life. True. But it's about finding that balance. So, the challenge that I pose to people is, if you don't want to do any research, if you don't want to put any thought into your gear selection, then the safest bet is to go with the high dollar duty grade stuff that is so overbuilt that there is zero chance that anything that you do to it is going to surpass the environment for which it was built. And if that's how you spend to choose your money, go for it. That's your business. But don't necessarily assume that everybody is going to have the same stack in priorities that you do. one of the videos that I'm going to be doing here coming up soon is a side-by-side comparison of my Modlite PLH version 2 as well as my previous carry light, the Phoenix PD35, because I'm curious where that point of diminishing returns is, and if there is truly an appreciable difference for the average person to spend $250 versus $80. I mean, you're talking, a 4x multiplier there. Is it 4 times as good for what most people are going to use it for? It may not be. Who knows? But again, that answer is not universal either. It's very much dependent on somebody's personal context. So that's the challenge that I'm going to put out this week, is if you are one of those people that is fond of the stop being poor mentality, if it's someone that genuinely doesn't know any better, take it as a teaching opportunity. Maybe dig in and find out what the circumstances are. And if you're somebody that just likes to dog on people because their gear is not as high speed as yours, well, then at that point you're just kind of an asshole and I don't really care what you do, because I don't really think that any of my content is going to be particularly useful. So hopefully this sparks some conversation. I would be interested to hear down in the comments, what's one of those things that you do or you run, or one of those decisions that you've made that might be traditionally suboptimal, but that you've done the cost-benefit analysis. So I always like encouraging that kind of discussion. Let me know what you think down in the comments. We also talk about this kind of stuff over at the Bespoke Solutions Facebook page. So if you haven't already joined over there, please do. Give us a like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up on the video if you're getting mileage out of the material. I greatly appreciate it. And other than that, I will see you guys next week. Thanks and take care.